Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new class in Google Programming. And in this opportunity, we're going to be talking about layout managers. Okay, so let's take a look at them. So layout managers are going to be objects that the Java Swing framework has included. And those objects are going to allow you to organize the layout of your windows in your application. Now, we're going to see different type of layouts, but the thing is, the most important part is that they can be mix and match. There are different layout managers and they all behave in different ways because they all will have different ways of organizing the content on the screen. It is important that you understand at least a few of them so you can have enough tools so you can lay out the application in the way that you actually want it to work. Something that is important for you to remember is that these are object two. And all object-oriented principles will apply to these layout managers because they are objects like any other. So let's take a look at them. So there are a little bit too many of them. There are different type of border layout of layout managers. So we have the border layout, the box layout, the card layout, the flow layout, the grid pack layout, the grid layout, the group layout, the sprint layout, and others. Now, are we going to see all of them? Definitely not. We're going to focus on three of them that are not only the most common, but also the simplest ones. Now, for your CA, feel free to explore other layout managers as you want, as you wish. Now, the important thing in here is that whatever, if you understand well the three layout managers that we're going to do in class, you should be able to use other layout managers because the principle to use them is exactly the same in all of them. Of course, there are particularities that are inherited to each one of them because they have specific behaviors. But if you understand the principle, then you should be able to extrapolate the knowledge that you get from these three layouts that we're going to do towards the rest of the layout managers. Now, which ones are the ones that we're going to see in class? We're going to have the flow layout, the border layout, and the grid layout. So let's start with the flow layout, which is one of the most basic layout managers in the Java Swing. Now, before we start with the flow layout, we're going to talk about the containers. And I just want to mention this very quickly. We already talked about that in the previous class. And a container is going to be anything anything in my window in my GUI program that will contain elements that the user can see. Now we have two basic containers. We have the JFrame, which is the actual window, and we also have the JPanel. So I can apply a layout manager to any of them. I can apply a layout manager to a JFrame. I can apply a layout manager to the JPanel, and I can do mix and match as I want. So we'll have a look at that, and of course we'll do a few exercises. Now let's start with the first layout manager, one of the most basic ones, which is the flow layout. Now, the way this is going to behave is that it's going to organize elements as they get added to the panel or the frame. So they will get added one beside the other from left to right and from top to bottom. Now, the best way to understand this is to actually play with it, try to implement the flow layout manager and see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try this on the code. Now, I have given you a pre-class version of a code that has a very simple GUI window. There is nothing in there. So it's just 500, 300 by 300 pixels window with a title layout manager. So let's run this to see what we get. There you go. So we have that window in there. Nothing really special about that yet. Now, what I'm going to do before I apply the layout manager is add a couple of elements. Now, so far we don't have many elements under our belt. We have only the J level, so I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to say J level. I'm going to say J. Let's add at least 2 or 3 J levels to see what happens. J level 1 is equals to new J level. And we're going to do that, let's say 3 times. Now, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. And I'm going to put some text in there semi-story, I'm going to say in one of them, I'm going to say 1. The other one, I'm going to say 2. And in the other one, I'm going to say 3. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add those 3 elements to the frame. So these that add 1, and we're going to add the 3 elements, so 1, 2, and 3. There you go. So I'm going to run this. Remember, at this point, we don't have any layout manager yet. So I'm just adding 3 elements, and I want to see what happens when I do that. So as you can see on my screen, I can only see 3. I cannot see 2, and I cannot see 1. Actually, if I remove 3, what is going to happen is that we're only going to see 2. We're not able to see 1. So what really is happening in there is that my J levels are overlapping. So I'm getting 1, then on top of 1, I'm getting 2, and then on top of 2, I'm getting 3. So the 3 elements are all overlapping each other. So that's why I cannot see whatever it is behind. So for that, the layout manager is going to help me. And the flow layout is going to add the elements in a flow way. So it's going to put first the first one that it gets added, then to the right of it is going to put the second one that was added, and then to the right of it is going to be the third one that was added. That's why it's called flow, because it will be added on the flow as the elements are added to the container. So let's do that. Let's go and say, if flow layout. Now, this code is on the slide, so you can go back to that anytime, and I'm going to call it manager. Flow layout manager is equals to a new flow layout. Now, in this case, I already have the import at the top, but in your case, it might ask you to add the input. Just make sure you add the input in there. And then once I have the layout manager, the next thing I need to say is to add the layout manager to the frame. So I'm going to say this, which represents the frame, set layout, and the layout manager that I'm setting for that particular frame is the flow layout. So that way, my frame knows that when I add multiple elements, the way the elements have to be displayed on the screen have to be in a sequential way. So let's run that. So now we can see that I'm getting 1, 2, and 3, and they're not overlapping. 1 is being set first, then 2, then 3, in the order that I have added them. Again, if I don't have a layout manager, this thing, they would overlap, so I don't see whoever is behind. Okay, guys, so I'm going to leave this first video until here. This was the introduction to layout managers and the first layout manager. In the next 2 videos, we're going to see the other 2 layout managers that I want you to see. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.